Welcome back everybody to another video of mine, and today I'm going to be covering some bit more concepts. Not anything new, but just another fun video where I want to discuss the different levels of power scaling, or the different levels of understandings of different concepts, to kind of gauge like what you might expect from different people and where they might be in their ability to understand and accurately power scale. So what I'm essentially laying out here is the 5 levels, and this is an arbitrary number made up by me, of course. It could be more than 5, could be less, depends on how you yourself doing this. So this is my interpretation of where I can accurately discern the different levels that people seem to show themselves at when it comes to scaling. So let's start with level 1. If we're talking about people who don't really know, level 1 being the lowest here, not really sure on power scaling, maybe they're just starting, they haven't really delved in with it much, or they're just really just follow what everybody else does or says and don't really put in much thought. Like, their understandings of things aren't actually going to be the highest, right? But there are a few things that they'll understand. And generally, from what I've seen, you'll see what I would consider level 1 of power scaling. People at this level tend to, so they'll understand that more destruction leads to more power, such that, it leads to more power. However, the amount of destruction is going to be their primary means of measuring power. Things such as what type of material is destroyed, or the density of such, or the volume, all that stuff goes out the window. It's just that more was destroyed, so this person hits harder. You see it a lot. And there's plenty of contradictions, but at level 1, most of those things are not thought about. However, then they will understand that if a character, say character A is faster than character B, and B is faster than C, they will understand that A is faster than C, as well as other related stats. Speed is just very easy to show for this. That's understood at level 1. Everybody should understand something simple like that. And then also, level 1, in terms of their ability to view what's bigger, which kind of goes hand in hand with, wow, more was destroyed. Wow, this person must be stronger. They'll understand, that things need to be bigger or look bigger for them to be more impressive to be destroyed. And so they can compare the sizes of things to other things, like when they're directly next to each other. Very easy to see. Like a person next to a building, they can go, wow, okay, the building is much bigger than the person, so long as no other variables are at play for level 1. So this doesn't factor in inconsistencies of size, skewed views or shots that the angles, that we might be seeing it from. For example, if a person is right next to a building and looking straight up, if that's the angle we're given, it's going to look much larger than, say, a different shot. And then also, when they're looking at the size of wow, that's big, again, density doesn't play a role either, so a hollow building that is larger just on the outside will be seen as more impressive in size destruction than something that is slightly smaller but purely dense and filled to the brim with just metal or something, right? Or even not even just metal in this case, just pure solid rock, a mountain versus a city the size of a mountain, right? But the city has a bunch of open space. Alright, so those things aren't generally compared or understood, but they can at least go building bigger than person and kind of get an idea of the degree that the building is bigger than the person, as long as the shots aren't messing with them. That seems to be about what level 1 brings to the table. And from there, I'd like to discuss level 2 of power scaling. Now, as I go across these levels, understand that level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, each level above the last can at least do what the level before them could do. They are going to be able to do level 2 can do everything level 1 can do, but better, plus maybe new things. Okay? And by can do, I mean understand, have an actual discussion and digest new information regarding these concepts. So, level 2. Starting off, they can understand that certain attacks that fail to destroy much at all can in fact be more potent than many highly destructive attacks, but can't explain why it's the case, or must rely on scaling as the only explanation for when it happens to hurt a stronger character, but leaves out attacks such as Piccolo's special beam cannon on the space pod and such, right? So like, the amount of destruction in this case is still the most often like their primary means of measuring power. But they will see like, whoa, special beam cannon, it didn't destroy much in this case, but it hurt or killed a character who is stronger than this other person who can blow up this much. So special beam cannon must hit harder than that other attack that destroyed a lot, even though it itself didn't destroy much. So that, whoa, I can't explain why this is happening, or why, it's just, I guess, scaling against characters, like that's the only method they have, and they don't understand why or how it could possibly be otherwise. So that's where their understanding takes it, but they do accept that things like that can happen. Or like, again, special beam cannon destroying the space pod, it's like, unless it hits the person, they can't possibly, like, okay, I guess that special beam cannon was weak, like, they're not going to be able to get that. But they're building, alright? This is level 2, understanding of, like, the potency behind attacks. Now, also level 2, a bit of a new concept here, is they may not know the concept of death of the author, but will absolutely know author's intent. They will understand death of the author when it's explained to them, but isn't able to dive into a meaningful talk about the difference in the concepts and to where they apply. So, I mean, you know, you could explain it and they'll be like, I get what you're saying, but they're not going to really be able to apply it in any way, see where the difference is, you know. However, the other thing is they cannot in any capacity apply the concept to the concept of being as accurate and consistent as possible. At level 2, when I've had these talks with people who seem to be in this boat, I can describe death of the author, but once I get into like how we ought to be as accurate and consistent as possible, and then break down why the concept of death of the author versus author's intent would allow for death of the author to be more accurate and more consistent, like that whole passage from one concept into the next is completely broken down. It's just not being understood whatsoever. But they can have conversations involving the concepts themselves, at least. And the third thing is that they can, again, understand, going into what I was just bringing up, they can understand the concept of being as accurate and consistent as possible. They'll always agree we ought to care about it, but will have very little to basically no idea on how to go about following through as such. I mean, like, pretty much anybody is like, hey, we agree that we should try to be as accurate and consistent as possible, right? And they're gonna say, like, yeah, of course. Pretty much even level 1 would want to say, like, yeah, of course. But then level 2 can kind of understand, okay, in doing so, then X kind of has these implications without going too far, and they're going to be able to kind of get surface area, but in terms of like applying it on themselves and not just following what another person says, no idea. So that's pretty much where level 2 stops. They're getting a few things, and this is level 1, level 2, I think brackets off like the end of very, very new, still learning things. Level 3 is where I think is pretty much more so like the average person. And to be fair, none of these things are, of course, black and white. A lot of these concepts I'm divvying up in a subjective manner, understand that, and I'm putting it where what I've experienced other people, which again is additionally subjective, just what I've come across, what I've come across other people and they seem to be able to understand at what levels, as well as my subjective interpretation on how difficult these concepts are to understand in the first place. So again, a lot of this is my subjective take on this. But if you feel like, oh man, I fit into level 4 maybe down the road of this video, but there's a level 2 concept that's really applying to you, like that's kind of normal, things like that, like the different things. Or perhaps you're like, man, a lot of level 3 is describing me, but I have these concepts of level 5 down. Like, cool. They're not black and white is what I'm trying to say. So this is kind of more of a take on averages, right? Anyways, moving on. Level 3. So a level 3 power scaler will understand the potency behind attacks better than a level 2, of course. Understanding that durability and density differences of material destroyed and how that factors in, plus what the different types of destructions there are, and a general idea to what degree they differ. So I think the average person can generally understand that fragmenting isn't as powerful as atomization, and they tend to be able to understand that atomization is like far above something like just simply fragmentation, right? Of course, there's different gray areas. Is fragmenting, rock, fragmenting like rock versus simply like cratering some steel? Okay, like you didn't like completely fragment in pieces the steel, but steel is harder. There are gray areas. I understand that, but just the general idea of the types of destruction, the density and matter that is being employed, and to what level it's destroyed. So those are the new things that the level 3 will understand when it comes to understanding potency behind attacks. Not simply, oh wow, a lot of X was destroyed, that attack must be stronger. Now, additionally, they will understand that the actual sizes of things plus their density and such, and is why it factors into their understanding of the AP. So it's not simply the size of things, but also the density and the makeup of what is, what is making up all the size of what's being destroyed. They can additionally factor in those skewed viewpoints and how it affects the shots and what's being seen. Can also sometimes factor in size inconsistencies. Only sometimes, though. This is one where I think this is level 3. A lot of people go in between 3 and 2 on here from what I see on the average person, to be fair. Because many people actually are unable to factor in skewed viewpoints. I showed this on a video. I'll be showing the pictures here again, where it's like, depending on where you're getting the viewpoint from, things in size can look drastically different. People don't seem to understand that very well. And then it's really hit or miss on if they can factor in size inconsistencies, or the word outlier. Now, moving on from that, additionally, the purpose of lowballing or taking minimums will be understood. They will be able to use it when viewing most calcs from others, and applies it to a better understanding of being as accurate and consistent as possible. Which is why, going on to the last point, they can understand being as accurate and consistent as possible better than level 2, with an added understanding in the direct importance of lowballing or taking minimums, but they still don't tend to show means of going beyond lowballing and trying to be as accurate and consistent. And so, they'll say, okay, remember when I was saying like level 2, they'll be like, we can talk about being as accurate and consistent as possible. I want to be. And then they kind of need to be told, well, here's the implications of being as accurate and consistent as possible. You can't simply take this as a truth value. It kind of needs to be quantified. At level 3, you don't really need somebody to quantify the surface level stuff. You would still need to kind of be told why things are leaning towards being more accurate or consistent when it gets to more advanced things. But surface level, you got it, okay? So that pretty much sums up level 3. Alright, small little break right there. So how are you feeling you're at right now? If you feel like you're surpassing everything level 3 so far, then awesome. I still have level 4s and 5s coming up. They are the shortest because they lack the least. But, yeah, if you feel like there's anything that you're, missing or is like, man, level 3, level 2, it's just places to work on, of course. And it's something that I would enjoy, I enjoy making these sort of things, these concept-heavy videos that kind of teach these different things. So if there's anything, a concept that enough people reach out and is like, hey, I'm really struggling trying to understand all the nuances of these things. If you're struggling to even understand it at a base enough level that you can decide what you actually think of it, if you're ever wanting to get to a point where you can think of it on your own and come to it on your own terms and your own thought process and not simply take what other people say, I love to make videos that can, as objectively as possible, describe each nuance behind the concepts. Additionally, of course, I try to answer questions that people have for me whenever I can. Okay, break over. Let's go on to level 4. See how many people in the comments are getting up to these levels. Now, level 4 fully understands what it means for certain stats to be much higher than others. So what I mean is, like, such as having enough reaction speed but not enough combat or movement speed to stop a blitz, right? They'll understand like pushing force or lifting strength, or like pushing or lifting strength versus actual striking force, right? Before this, there'll be like better and better understandings of the differences, but no real way in which it is incorporated as explained. So at level 4, that's where you can truly like differentiate and explain like, okay, here's why they differentiate, here's how they differentiate, and like what it means for them to be differentiated as such. That's level 4. Again, with the like reaction speed, combat speed, movement speed thing, a lot of people think that speed equals speed. I don't know why. There's different branches of speed. Speed, again, once again, being like the easiest explanation for this. I already went over how there's different strength things, such as pushing, lifting versus striking. Those are different things that all employ just raw strength. But speed is easy. People think just like, wow, that person moved this fast. He has this much reaction, this much, right? It's not that way. And so somebody who has reactions of like light speed, but moves and fights at the speed of normal human, that bullet is still hitting them. It doesn't matter that they can react at the speed of light, right? Okay, so a lot of people really, truly, I don't even see the average person seem to understand this. They just think speed equals speed. And it's just all-encompassing under the umbrella term of speed. Anyways, they additionally, and lastly, told you it's going to be short, level 4 here, understand burden of proof, such as Hacks versus someone on a higher level than that Hacks has ever shown to work on, as well as things like hyperbole statements and etc. So I'll give a quick example here because I think the average person thinks they understand the burden of proof, but then this always comes up, and this is it. The average person doesn't understand burden of proof. People really truly don't understand the difference of like devil's advocate versus like taking a positive claim and giving it a truth value and actually backing it up, and then a person being like, that doesn't necessitate it is true, and you're saying, oh, so it is false then you need to prove that it's false. And it's like, I'm not saying it's false. I'm saying you saying it is true is not backed up. You are the one with burden of proof. You want to say this character can do X, but there's nothing that can suggest he can. Prove it. I'm not saying he can't do it. Yeah, that sort of thing. I've done it a bunch. The average person thinks they understand burden of proof, but it's quite obvious I don't think they do. Now, the biggest example here, again, is with Hacks. This person can mind control people. Wow, and he's mind controlled human-level people at best the whole way through, and he's never failed. He's always mind controlled people. Hey, I'm a character who hasn't shown any resistance to mind control, but I'm literally as strong as Galactus. And then you'll have people say, well, hey, he hasn't shown that he can mind resist. So this person who's always mind resist these human level people, he can mind control rather, sorry if I'm mixing up my words here. He can mind control the Galactus powered person because he hasn't shown to resist it. I'm saying, whoa. Now that's your burden of proof. I'm not saying he does resist the mind control. I'm saying that your claim, your positive claim that he can mind control him, that burden of proof has not been met. Simply saying, but he's never shown to be able to he's never shown to resist mind control. That doesn't mean therefore he can be mind controlled by someone who's weaker, because the other person has never shown to mind control somebody above human level either. Right? You don't get to have that positive truth value be taken as such. That it just doesn't work. That is the burden of proof that the average person truly just doesn't understand. And with that, we finally move on to the highest level of understanding. Once again, I want to recap this real quick and say all the levels going from 1 to 5, the higher the level, the understandings of each level prior is fully understood, or like understood even better. So level 4 knows everything level 3, 2, and 1 does at least their level or better, including the new stuff. Okay, last one, level 5. This is the height of a scaler in my opinion. And this is going to come down to where the highest form of AP versus DC is understood. Where every detail regarding how AP is found and how it's incorporated into fights, feats, etc. can actually cover the volumes of attacks, the type of destruction, how much destruction, and can use calcs when determining the actual AP, joules compared to the volume of everything, can fully explain all of it, right? When you have a full understanding of being able to scale attacks as accurately as possible, that's when you're going to be at that highest level of being able to arrive to truth values for these attacks. Scaling attacks is pretty much at the forefront of what people do for scaling, but it's one of the least understood things in terms of actually scaling how potent they are, because people just don't understand. So, fully integrating and understanding AP is, I think, level 5. Almost nobody truly understands it, thoroughly. Next, we're back to Death of the Author. Death of the Author versus author's intent, but in regards to being as accurate and consistent as possible. Unlike, say, level 2. Now they can fully understand both concepts and apply it to required truths or required minimums. And so, a very big example I give is between Death of the Author versus author's intent is the author intends for, let's say there's an author from the 1800s, right? And he writes a character who does just consistently racist things. Does and says consistently racist things. I mean, after another, non-stop, zero remorse is ever shown at any point. Just always doing or saying something racist. But who's deciding what is or isn't racist? Now, if you go with author's intent, the author, if he says, I never intended for him to be racist, then if you truly believe in author's intent, then this person who, and I'm not going to get graphic with all the different racist things of actions that people could do or say and all that stuff. I'm not here for that. Just use your imagination here. You'd have to say, nah, they're not racist. And true, they might not be. But in terms of being as accurate and consistent as possible, the person who uses Death of the Author as a concept would say, nah, it's more accurate that they are racist. Here's all their actions and things they've said, backing up the consistency in my claim that they are more accurately and consistently a racist character, right? That's essentially one of the easiest examples I can give of Death of the Author versus author's intent, and that's it being applied to being as accurate and consistent as possible. Now, it doesn't have to be racism and stuff like that, but there's minimum or required truth values that can come of this as well. And when it's all being able to be applied at the highest level, that's level 5 when it comes to Death of the Author versus author's intent. Did a video with this as well with List Maker. It's great, you should watch it, where we cover Death of the Author versus author's intent. He sums it up really great in that video as well. Give it a like. And finally, kind of was covered with the understanding of AP, where it says can use calcs, just calcing in general. Now you could have a pseudo level 6 engineering degree, master's degree, can calculate things to the highest level, because of course that's going to be all I can take it is level 5 calcing in general, where you can actually understand the differences of how to apply force or work done in like different systems, say like a pulley system, watts to joules to different things like that. You have a clear understanding and ways that you can convert it to joules of energy to get actual consistent outputs for where things align. Um, Calcing, of course, also isn't just the attacks, but also like the effects or the sizes of things. Calcing can be in the form of pixel scaling, though pixel scaling, maybe that's another concept I should have covered on here, but it's already been long enough. But yeah, calcing in general. And I think that's honestly something that the even level 4, but especially level 3 on the average people just don't understand calcing, which makes sense. That's fine. It is what it is. And these are the levels. I'll show them all again here, where you can see like the different levels and what they specialize in. And yeah, that's essentially what it looks like. This is my experience. This is my idea on like where these different concepts kind of rank in hardness as well. It's kind of a weighted thing between my experience of what other people have shown to be able to understand versus what I think people should be able to understand on their own. But yeah, so in the comments below, if you're up to it, totally up to you. I'd just be curious what people's takes are on these concepts, where you think you are, if you're comfortable revealing that or not. Any questions on any of the concepts or anything. I hope you guys, of course, enjoyed the video. I hope you guys are hungry for knowledge if you're wanting to learn anything new. Or, honestly, a lot of these concepts, maybe every single one of them, I'm just writing it up because I thought this would be fun, probably has already been covered in past videos of mine. They're out there. I always want people to learn because the scaling community is generally bad faith, just doesn't really care about being accurate. It's just more so about like, the scaling community is just so much more about like, hey bro, my character's, you know, as strong as I can hopefully make them because I'm gonna logic chain all my assumptions together and just pretend they're true. Whoa, universal person, hey. Like, that sadly is about the level a lot of people are at. Alright, anyways, yeah, see you all for the next video. Ciao, guys.
Pastor.